Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled, ARIS Can Be So Much More, 3 Ways to Increase Your Value from ARIS. Today's webcast will be presented by Eric Roovers, Senior Director of Transformation Solutions, Southern and Eastern Europe and Middle East at Software AG. As we move through today's presentation, I invite you to submit any questions that you may have via the Q&A box, which is located in the lower right corner of your WebEx session. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be recorded, and today's presenter will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Additionally, today's presentation is being recorded. This recording will be available to you via YouTube should you wish to access it later on. To receive a copy of the YouTube link, please email the webcast host. Before I turn today's presentation over to Eric, I would like to briefly introduce you to Software AG. Software AG offers the first end-to-end digital business platform based on open standards with integration, process management, adaptive application development, real-time analytics, and IT portfolio management as core building blocks to help customers build their digital futures today. With over 45 years of customer-centric innovation, Software AG is ranked as a leader in many innovative and digital technology categories. Software AG has more than 4,300 employees and is active in 70 countries. It is now my pleasure to welcome Eric Roovers.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to some of you. My name is Eric Roovers, and I will be taking you through several perspectives on the use of ARIS that might inspire you and might enable you to generate more value out of your existing ARIS investments. So I would assume that many of you have worked with ARIS a lot over the years. I have. I've been using ARIS since 2003. So I've seen many different versions and also many different types of projects. Like you, I was in projects to document processes and attempt to harmonize them across the enterprise. I've been in projects where we try to streamline SAP projects and harmonize the SAP systems in a process-driven way. And I've been in projects where we used ARIS to architect the IT landscape of the future. And nowadays, whenever I encounter customers, I feel that there's a need to do more. People tell me that they still, after all these years, have difficulties getting buy-in from senior management to own the processes and architectures that they've so carefully documented and designed in ARIS. The bodies of knowledge that these processes represent are just sitting sometimes in ARIS as a documentation, but they're not really used in an actionable way. And the architecture that you can model in ARIS still has to be realized. So how do we do that? How can we take that information, that content that we have in ARIS, and do more with it? How can we make sure that more people are interested in working with ARIS and collaborating on improving processes and systems? So we believe, and I believe, that the content that you have in ARIS today represents real value that you can start to dig into. So this morning, this afternoon, this evening, today I will tell you about 3 ways that customers are actually already today generating more value out of ARIS through the use of Software AG's tools. These 3 different perspectives are, first of all, digital transformation, which is a transformation approach to allow the business and IT to collaboratively design and plan their digital future. The second one is strategy to execute, which is about taking strategic improvement objectives and running them all the way through your services and processes in a continuous way. And thirdly, enterprise management, which takes the processes and procedures that you have and releases them from their expert hold to everyone in the organization, so that everyone can get involved in improving processes and procedures, improving quality, and improving customer experience. So we'll start with the first one, digital transformation. Digital transformation obviously has something to do with digitalization. And digitalization is using digital technologies to improve customer experience and to drive more revenue. So part of digitalization is developing complete new business models around new channels, new value propositions, and new technologies. And this is impacting the way that we interact with customers, and it's also interacting the way that we do business and operate our business. So digitalization is very, very disruptive in terms of what it means for the organization and for its IT landscape. And this is changing also the way that we run our IT within our organizations. Gartner projects that by 2020, in just a couple of years, 50% of the IT budget will be owned by the CIO. It's the business that is owning the other half. And they're using that to develop very fast and very agile new business models around IT that the CIO will need to somehow incorporate and enable from his IT landscape. IT being so important also means that it's critical, that's on the critical path of developing new value propositions and business models. So somehow companies need to understand how they can leverage IT and control IT and embed it in their business development processes. And lastly, the digitalization, the digital revolution has also increased the speed at which IT is being changed. If you look, for example, at apps, any app that you use today on your phone, and you check in the App Store or in the Play Store how often these apps are updated, it's massive. You get a new release or a new update every week or every 2 weeks. So companies are continuously changing their apps, which also means that the underlying IT needs to be changed. And in a lot of cases, also the underlying processes need to be changed. So digitalization is really, really disruptive. If you look at it a little bit closer, you can see that the role of the COO and the CIO in this respect are moving closer and closer together. They face a shared challenge. Time to market of new products and services, because of the digital impact, is very much dependent on the time to delivery from IT. Processes and systems not being ready is a main root cause of product launches being delayed. Operational costs, as we digitize and digitalize our processes more, increasingly becomes IT cost. Process optimization, after we've mechanized and automated processes already for many, many years, the remaining optimization increasingly is within IT. So a business transformation and an IT transformation are two phenomena that we cannot see separate. They are one and the same thing. And with the digitalization trend, this sharing of this challenge, these shared KPIs that COOs and CIOs have, will only increase. So what do organizations do to cope with this? Well, several organizations that we've worked with as Software AG have established what they call a transformation office. So rather than organizing transformations, individual transformations, as projects or programs to move the organization from one steady state to the next steady state, they're viewing transformation as something completely different. They're viewing transformation as a process. And they recognize that being able to transform faster and more efficient than anybody else will set you apart in the market. If you can change faster than your competitors can, then this is a differentiating capability. So what does it mean to run transformation as a process? It means that many of the things that we do within programs and projects will now need to be done at an enterprise level. So business and IT, first of all, need to collaborate. This is not an IT process or a business process. This is a collaborative process. Secondly, we'll need to include many of the different capabilities and processes that we tend to run separately nowadays in our companies, like strategy management, business and enterprise architecture, portfolio planning, change management. What you will see is an increasingly PMO functions within programs will be moved into this transformation office. Now, these transformation offices typically report into a COO. They typically own part or all of the transformation budget, and they have a specific governance and reporting structure that enables them to drive the transformation. I think the finest example that we have in our customer base today is Royal Philips, which is an electronics company headquartered in the Netherlands. They started out about 150 years ago with lighting, with light bulbs. But many of you will know them from shavers or televisions or radios, even record companies, semiconductors. They've basically done everything that you can do with electronics. Nowadays, Philips is transforming itself into a company which focuses on well-being and healthcare, so medical devices. And increasingly, these medical devices need to be digitalized. They come with all kinds of services that will connect a device that you wear on your body, will connect you to your to a hospital or to emergency services or to your doctor. Philips experienced a slowdown in the last 10 years, which is why they completely turned the way that they transform themselves on its head. And they established transformation as a function, a transformation office which reports into the chief operating officer, who has as one of his primary responsibilities to run transformation as a process. And by running all transformations through this office, aligning all of the individual projects from a central place with a relatively small team, about 15 people, they're able now to run 19 programs in parallel, not 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 19 individual massive transformation programs running in parallel. And one of the transformations that Philips is going through is trying to simplify themselves, not just from the point of view of harmonizing or optimizing transformation processes, but also from a business point of view. So they are divesting in certain areas. They're spinning off the lighting business that Philips started with originally 150 years ago, which is massive, which is 1/3 of the company. They've already spun off their television division. And all of this has been made possible because they run transformation as a process. This enables them to really quickly identify the impact of spinning off part of the business on their operating model, on their business models, on their processes and systems, and to plan and execute on that vision. So how do they do that? From a methodology point of view, they focus on 3 things: capabilities, processes, and technology. Business capabilities are a subject that we can do a complete webinar about. So I will not go into the specifics of business capabilities now. But capabilities provide a strategic view on what the organization, what the company needs to be good at in order to deliver its business models. So it's a very strategic view on how the business is operated. And by analyzing the capability maturities, which is something that you can do in ARIS, you're able to identify where investments should go. Obviously, this is a high-level investment map, and now we need to look closer to the way that the business is operated in detail, which might differ from product line to product line, from geography to geography. So we have to look at the processes as well. And from our capability process, we can also define what technologies would we need in order to build the business models of tomorrow. And also, how would we fit that into a plan for realization? How can we fit that within the current portfolio of projects? And how do we move ahead with our product launches in the next quarters and years? And what Philips does is they use ARIS and Alphabet for this purpose. So the business design side, envisioning the new business models, envisioning what this means for the operating model, is all done in ARIS. This creates a stable, structured, and consistent vision of where Philips wants to go. Then it needs to happen. We have to make it happen. This is what Philips is using Alphabet for. All of these aspects, like processes and systems, are viewed as portfolios and can be analyzed as connected portfolios and can be brought to bear on the portfolio of projects. So in this way, Philips is able to very quickly go from a strategic change somewhere in their business models or business capabilities or processes and identify the impact on the existing portfolio of projects and make whatever changes need to be made. So what we see from this is that the way that Philips uses ARIS and Alphabet is they design and plan digital transformations across business and IT. They have multidisciplinary teams working on these transformation analyses. The design capability that we provide allows companies to envision and design their future operations, whereas the plan capability helps you to plan and subsequently monitor the transformation, making it happen. On the design side, you will find like the business architecture, the target enterprise architecture on a high level, process design, simulation, and system design. And the plan side is about viewing that as a portfolio, a connected group of portfolio or a portfolio of portfolios that we can analyze so that we know exactly which dependencies we have to take into account when we go ahead and make this future happen. I talked about design. The planning part is about viewing and analyzing all of the architectural components and the projects and demand and budget as a portfolio and creating your plan, your master plan, your strategic plans from that. And it also helps you to monitor and govern the execution of those plans and any impact, any new changes, any new demand that needs to be incorporated. So we provide that as part of what we call the Business and IT Transformation Platform, which combines ARIS and Alphabet. Now, because this is a vast area, we have defined an approach which is based on many of the approaches that are available in the market. And it's also based on our experience with customers like Royal Philips. And it's a three-phase approach, and I would just quickly like to take you through it. A three-phase approach, starting with the discovery phase. And within this discovery phase, the strategy obviously is the most important starting point. The corporate strategy, which might be a growth strategy or a consolidation strategy or a dividend strategy, but it needs to be translated into a business strategy. So if we want to grow, how are we going to do that? Which markets are we going to enter? Which customer segments do we want to reach? What value propositions and associated business models do we need to create? So that is the business strategy. And now, with those ideas in mind, which is the outcome of a very creative business development process, we need to understand what this means for our business capabilities. So now we articulate these strategic visions in what it means for our business capabilities. Do we need to become better at digital marketing? Do we need to improve our supply chain capabilities, etc.? Now, once we have done that, when then we've structured our vision and we capture that in ARIS, we now take a deeper look into the operating model. So how do we operate our business today? And what would these capability transitions mean for our processes, our systems, our risk and compliance frameworks, our organizational structures, our skill sets, our governance, etc.? That's what we call the operating model, and it includes the IT, which is an integral part of how you operate your business. So the enterprise architecture is contained within this. And when I say enterprise architecture, obviously I mean the high-level enterprise architecture, not the very detailed solution architecture, which is something that we will discuss later. Now, once we've settled on what this means for the operating model, the next step is to view this as a combined set, a connected set of portfolios, so that we can analyze all of the dependencies and come up with a master plan for its realization. This master plan consists of solutions which implement demand and are realized in a project. So for each of these solutions or each of these projects, we can now start to design, if necessary, the associated processes and systems. Once we've done that, we hand over to the software lifecycle, software development lifecycle, or if it's an agile approach, we do this in an agile iterative process together with development. But this process is not concerned with the development itself, just by the design and the planning aspects of it. So the final phase, the change phase, is about monitoring all of the transitions, planning and executing the deployments, monitoring all of the impacts that the projects have on the organization and vice versa. Any changes coming from external that could impact our project portfolio need to be managed. Also, any project that slips or cannot deliver in full for whatever reason needs to be accommodated for, needs to be analyzed, and possibly measures need to be taken in other projects. We want to minimize the impact of external or internal changes to the realization of our strategic goals. And finally, obviously, we would like to understand if what we set out to do in our transformation is something we're actually achieving. Now, what does this look like in our platform? A lot of this you will know already. So in the discovery phase, we provide a couple of models that will help you to capture the market in terms of the risks, the regulatory requirements that you need to comply with. It helps you to understand your customers using customer journey mapping. It helps you to understand your value propositions and your business models through the business model canvas. And these are just three of many different model types that we use in order to capture what do we envision as our future business models. The strategy is something that we define in terms of strategy maps, in SWOT analyses, in KPI trees, and obviously in business capability models. Moving on to the next phase, we find things like our process framework, which is in many cases the heart of your operating model. And moving on to portfolios, we now use Alphabet to take in that information and to start analyzing all of the interdependencies. And from that, we create a master plan. We decide on where to invest and which projects to run first, and this will become a master plan. Once we go into solutions, for you, those of you who are used to ARIS, you will see the familiar process designs and architecture models. And in the change phase, you will see a lot of Alphabet again, because it monitors all of the projects in motion, but also ARIS, which is used to deploy new processes into the organization. So I quickly discussed digital transformation as the first way of using what you have in ARIS today, your processes, and extending them into, on the one hand, the business architecture, and on the other hand, the portfolio planning aspect. And through this, you're able to support a complete end-to-end transformation process, which helps you to differentiate against competitors in the marketplace. The next topic I would like to discuss is what we call strategy to execute. What strategy to execute is about is making strategic goals happen. And I'm not talking about the strategy at large. This is what we have a transformation approach for. I'm talking about an individual and strategic goal. For example, increasing customer happiness by decreasing lead time of certain processes. This is a very clear and tangible objective. And it requires a thorough analysis of the services and processes that we provide in order to optimize these KPIs. So what I will show you next is something which will be very familiar to a lot of you, which is known as the process lifecycle, or as I call here, the service lifecycle. So every service lifecycle starts with strategy. We're not going to optimize just for the sake of optimizing. We want to optimize against something. So for example, reducing lead time, because we think that customers will be happier with a shorter delivery time, as an example. So we need to define this. We need to define what our strategy is, what our strategic objectives are. Secondly, we need to design for it. So what we would need is to understand what is making the process slow today, which in turn makes our services less attractive to customers. And then we need to redesign that process. And I will circle back to this in a second. Once we've designed it, we need to automate parts of it. If it's not automated yet, this is an opportunity to accelerate the processes in places where you find that the lead time should be shortened. Processes then need to be deployed. Both human-operated and automated processes need to be deployed into the organization and into the IT landscape, after which they are monitored continuously to see what is happening with these processes in real life. Obviously, we respond if some of these processes get stuck, but we also would like to understand, are these processes structurally performing well or not? Are they outperforming what we intended? Are they underperforming? So this is an analysis that we can that we will need to do on these processes. We will need to identify the root causes of an outperformance or an underperformance. We also would like to understand if processes that are deployed in different places are executed the same everywhere. Now, from this analysis, we not only get learnings and improvement potential, we also get a lot of data. And this data can then be used to redesign the process and simulate that redesign further. So once you're through this cycle one time, you have data that helps you to simulate any improvement of the process. As an example, so before I go into the example, I just want to point out which products we're talking about here. So obviously it's ARIS for the strategy and design. It's ARIS PPM, Process Performance Manager, that we use to analyze the performance of processes over a longer period of time. And obviously Web Methods is our choice to automate, build and run and monitor our processes. Now, an example that I would like to discuss with you is the city of Dubai. Dubai is a city which is growing massively, and there's buildings being constructed all over the place. It's crazy. And Dubai has some really great ambitions. So they want, for example, to be the happiest city in the world. And also they want to be the smartest city in the world. So from a government perspective, there's a lot of focus in making sure that government services are digitalized and that they are constructed in such a way that people are happy with the result. So how do we do that? What we've done for the city of Dubai is to take, so we've done several projects. I'm going to discuss one of those. And this was a project around the registration of new products. So if you want to bring a product to the market in Dubai as a business, it needs to be registered and then allowed onto the market. And there's a process for this. And obviously, it's in everybody's interest to do this as quickly as possible. As a business, you want to know if your product will be allowed or not as quickly as possible. From the government point of view, they want to keep businesses happy because they want businesses to come to Dubai, but also they need to make sure that the due diligence of these projects is done correctly. So first of all, we start with modeling the process. So what is the way of working actually supposed to be? And secondly, we started measuring this process in real life through the systems of the city of Dubai. And this gave us some great insights that we put together in a dashboard. So this is the management view of this process, this service, and the processes that support it from a management point of view. So it describes for each of the individual activities, key activities within the process, exactly what the lead time is. And we found some very interesting improvement potential there already. The second thing that was interesting in the city of Dubai is that they would like to understand better the actual costs of the process in order to make the pricing just right. You don't want to overcharge your customers, in this case businesses. You don't want to undercharge as well because then you will be short of budget. So they needed a thorough understanding of what the actual cost is of running these product applications from a transaction point of view. And so we analyze that as well. We are using a model created by the Dubai government, a costing model, and we've implemented that in ARIS PPM. And this enables us to get very, very accurate costing estimates for this process on a transaction basis, which includes direct and indirect costs. And obviously the experts, the lean experts that are tasked to optimize these processes and services on a day-to-day basis, they use expert tools. They use ARIS PPM proper. They can see for every transaction exactly what the process would look like, who was doing what was within the threshold of lead time and which wasn't. And one of the great advantages of this type of analysis is that we were actually able to see if the process was compliant to how it should be designed from a regulatory point of view. We unearthed several breaches of a segregation of duty, where the person running the application, so processing the application, was also the one approving the outcome, which is something which was and is not allowed. So this is a fine example of how you can use your process and extend it with operational intelligence in order to improve actual services. I'm just taking a public example here. I could just as well have used a private example, a private sector example, to improve services, to improve customer satisfaction, to improve your pricing, to identify any breaches of compliance, and to identify further optimization potential that you would not even think about beforehand. Now, the third topic I would like to discuss with you today is enterprise management. Enterprise management is based completely on ARIS, but it takes a different view of what we do with ARIS. The topic revolves around the concept of taking ARIS and making it a tool for everybody in the organization in order to improve quality. Now, quality is an overloaded word. And we call it an enterprise management system because a quality management system has specific connotations in specific sectors. In some industries, it's called an internal control system. Others call it a corporate or a risk management system. And some industries actually talk about a quality management system. What they all have in common is that they try to capture the way of working in order to make sure everyone is compliant with it, that the way of working can be audited by external regulators, and to improve quality throughout the organization. And it's this last objective which, unfortunately, we fall short of in a lot of cases. And I'm sure that you have some examples in your neighborhood as well, where you do have the documentation of processes, but the quality of processes is actually not being helped by it. So what can we do about it? Now let's first talk about quality management from an historical perspective. Quality management for a lot of people means documents. When I started working, a lot of these were in paper, binders, on shelves in a dusty room. And at that time, we were digitizing those, which means basically doing away with the paper stuff, but we would recreate it in a SharePoint site. So rather than having shelves, we now have SharePoint sites with hundreds of documents in it. Well, there are some problems with that way of working. In any, reasonably sized company, you will have tens of thousands of these documents. And if you have many different plans or many different business units and or countries where you operate, you will have typically tens or even hundreds of different sites where these documents are distributed. In some cases, they will be in different languages as well. And when you dive into these documents, you will find that there's a lot of them on these SharePoint sites that actually fail to have an approved, that have to have the full improvement. So actually people are working with unapproved procedures and processes. And they're for sure not harmonized. And you can see that when you analyze those documents across different sites and see what how the way of working will actually differ from site to site. And unfortunately, if you dive in a little bit deeper, you will actually find that these processes are, in a lot of cases, not even correct. So they do not reflect how they are being executed in real life, but also they do not reflect what we actually would want from these processes. So how do we solve that? Because we do not want non-compliance, especially in regulated industries like finance, like oil and gas, like pharmaceuticals and medical devices. We don't want non-compliance. If not for the fines that you can incur, it's for the safety of your workers and customers. In specific industries like gas, not complying with a procedure or the procedure not being clear to everybody can actually mean accidents and losses. A second problem from documents is that it's very difficult and unwieldy and laborious to change a document. So whenever there's a change in a procedure or a process that you would like to propagate through your organization, you will need to go through all of these documents. So you have a lot of people in your organization going through the document and making the necessary changes. So this is slow, and it's error prone as well, which leads to differences between implementations in different sites. Third problem, which is also embedded in this risk, it's the adoption. To be very, very frank, a lot of people don't read those documents. A lot of people don't like to read documents. The documents are very formal. There's a lot of information in it. It's very difficult to get the information you need out of it. And in the modern age, a lot of young people coming into the organizations, they don't really care for documents either. So there are some key problems with documents. Another problem is that if processes and procedures are different from site to site, this will actually curb the mobility of people. For example, take a look at an oil platform. If you're used to a way of working in oil platform A and you need to go to platform B, and it will take you a week to train yourself on these specific ways of working, this is a lot of wasted time. So the more harmonized processes are across sites, the higher the mobility will become. Now, for those of you who have these quality management systems or internal control systems or whatever it's called in your specific industry, you will recognize that the SharePoint sites need to be cleaned up. So every now and then, annually, maybe even more often, people will have to go through the SharePoint sites and take out all of the old versions, obsolete versions, unapproved versions, and clean up these sites. So enough about the documents. We want to get rid of that. I think we made that clear. So how do we do that? First of all, we digitalize the content. We go through these documents, we take out any process information, and we store that inside of ARIS. So we have now one structured body of process knowledge, which is consistent and connected. There will always be a need to articulate specific procedures or ways of working in a document or in a piece of text at least. But we can upload that on ARIS as well through the document storage and connect it to the associated process steps. In some cases, we might even do away with a small written work instruction and replace it by an instruction video. Secondly, we engage with employees. We now take this information and bring it to everyone in the organization in such a way that it's easy to consume. And using the collaborative features of ARIS, specifically the Connect portal, we can ask our employees for their feedback. We can ask them to discuss. We can ask them to ask questions if there's anything unclear. So they can use the power of their peers. But as a manager, you can also tap into the discussions and identify improvement potential. And third, we can simplify the governance of all of these processes and documents by means of ARIS Process Governance, the built-in workflow engine, enabling you to create a very smooth workflow and very fast as well to propagate changes through the organization whilst being in complete compliance with all of the regulatory requirements. So for those of you who have ARIS and have your processes documented, in some cases, unfortunately, these processes are only for and by experts. They are locked up and only the experts know them and only the experts can read them. And this is a shame because these processes should be known by everybody, which is why we recommend to release those processes. And through that, make everybody an owner of these processes and getting their feedback to improve quality for improving those processes. So how do we do that? So obviously, I mentioned Connect. ARIS Connect has specific features that can display a simplified version of a process. So you don't get a complicated diagram, you just get a quick walkthrough, step by step. And for each of the steps, you can get a quick description or an extensive description, whatever is needed in order to explain how to execute a step. If you don't want to provide a textual description or a document, you can also just embed a small instruction, 20-second instruction video, whether it's how do I fill in a form, or how do I clean a machine, how do we test the control. All of these can be quickly explained in a video. And all of this can be connected into ARIS and displayed in ARIS Connect. And obviously, we can also provide the management view. So this is a preview of ARIS Aware, and you will see the familiar model. Hopefully, because this is the customer journey landscape, it could have just as well been a process framework. But what we see on the right-hand side are all of the statistics around these processes. So here the management can see not just the design and the requirements on the processes, but also how many of them are in development, how many of them are being deployed and rolled out to the organization, and how are these processes performing. Now, a lot of people in your organizations will not be behind a desktop or a laptop all day, but many of them will have a smartphone or even a tablet. So what we are providing from Software AG is the ability to build your own apps on top of ARIS. And I will just quickly run this video by you, just a little bit, to show you a demo version of such an app. It's called Process Guide, and all of the information that you find in this app is coming out of ARIS, including the pictures, including the texts. And you can utilize things like barcode scanning, location information, identity information to give people access to exactly the right procedures and work instructions that they need to do their work properly. And I should note that this is not a standard app. This is not something that we provide from Software AG. If you're going to bring your way of working to your employees, it should be branded with your logo. It should be branded, it should be in your it should be your app rather than a Software AG branded app, because adoption is key. Now, the benefits of this way of working is obviously a far quicker update of improvements. You don't have to go through thousands of documents to check if what the impact is of specific regulatory or procedural change, which will help you to improve your to accelerate your improvement cycles. You can actually deliver key updates to your way of working very, very fast, even though typically you would like to use a 3-month release cycle. In any way, you don't need a lot of people managing a lot of documents across the globe anymore. So you can free up those resources to do something more useful. You're reducing the risk of non-compliance because it's far easier to check and control that the way of working is the same across product lines and geographies and business units from a centralized repository point of view than through tens of thousands of different documents. And as a result, the risk of accidents and losses is less. And I'm not going to go into that example specifically, but this is one of the drivers behind companies like Maersk Drilling and Statoil that are running dangerous operations on sea drilling for oil. The app that we just saw is not something that we made up completely ourselves. We collaborated with Deutsche Lufthansa, the airline operator, to build this, and they are building this to roll out to their employees. So their way of working is in ARIS, and they are disseminating that way of working through ARIS, through a specific Lufthansa app to everyone in the organization. And they explained about this a couple of weeks ago, November 3rd. So if you check on YouTube, on the Software AG channel, you will find that webinar. Just check it out. It's really cool. And then we have them again, Royal Philips. Now, I talked about having this process framework as the basis of that transformation process. But when you have this process framework, why not use it in the same vein also for your enterprise management? And Philips are actually using ARIS to roll out the way of working through ARIS Connect to 60,000 employees, so 60,000 users of ARIS. In Statoil, it's 40,000. Everyone in the organization is using ARIS, even though they might not even know it. They might not even be aware of it, because it's delivered in a branded app or in a branded Connect portal. So we've had a little bit of a delay because my phone line would fail twice. Again, apologies for that. I hope I've been able to inspire you with some of the examples that we've developed together with our customers around the topics of digital transformation, strategy to execute, and enterprise management. And I've mentioned digitalization and the digital revolution already many, many times. And many organizations, both in private and public sector, are faced with the challenge of how to digitalize. So I would like to draw your attention to the possibility to go online, go to our website, and take a test for digital fitness, benchmarking your digital strategy against 200 companies surveyed by Forrester, the analyst. Just a 15-minute online assessment. You will get a great report. And if you like, we can follow up with you on that. So with that, I would like to close my part and see if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Eric, thank you. We've got a couple of questions in the few minutes we have left. The first one that I have, both digital transformation and strategy to execute start with strategy. What's the difference between the two?
Okay. Obviously, everything starts with strategy. And it's really a difference in order of magnitude. Digital transformation, the digital transformation approach basically takes the entire strategy as a starting point. And it will allow you to do things like create completely new business models, merge with another company, divest parts of your business. So these are big transformational changes in the organization. If you look at the strategy in terms of what we would like to achieve for our customers, this is just maybe 1 or 2 KPIs that we want to monitor and optimize. For example, customer satisfaction, pricing, lead times, and quality. So whereas a digital transformation basically takes an enterprise view, strategy to execute takes one specific service and one specific objective, or maybe a couple of strategic objectives, strategic KPIs on that service into account. That's the basic difference. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. The next question, is Software AG providing a standard mobile app for ARIS?
Okay. So I guess that one came during my unfortunate break, but as I said, we're not providing a standard app. It wouldn't really make sense because when you roll out procedures and ways of working into your organization, you would like to do that in your own brand, maybe even use information from third-party systems to integrate into that app as well. So what we're providing is the ability to tap into ARIS through what we call an API and get the information that you need out of ARIS and into this app. So no, we don't have a standard app.
Is EA still supported in ARIS, or should we use Alphabet or ARIS for EA?
Right. So EA is a very broad topic, and EA basically is a process with a lot of different steps in it. ARIS EA is still there; it's still completely supported, but the planning and analysis part of EA is obviously what we have Alphabet for. So ARIS is very good in modeling things and designing things and creating a vision of the architecture. It's also very good at sitting down and working out all of the details of connecting systems with each other, defining the data models, etc. And those are all, let's say, slow metabolism design activities, and those are perfectly suited with ARIS. So what you will see is that the target enterprise architecture, the high-level target enterprise architecture, but also the solution architecture, which is in a lot of cases very, very detailed, or project architecture as it is sometimes called. These are the things that you would do in ARIS. But the architecture management in terms of investment planning, analyzing your master plans, defining with Alphabet. And this is why we combine both tools together. And the information from ARIS is available in Alphabet and vice versa. So you can build your own enterprise architecture process on the back of the approach that I explained earlier.
Okay, one last question to squeeze in, and it is, what if I still need documents for my auditors? Can I still use Connect?
Oh, yes. So even if your end vision is to use a Connect to completely drive, let's say, the documentation needs of your organization, there might still be regulatory requirements that actually want a document, a document-shaped document. And also in a transition period, as you move towards a completely digitalized enterprise management, you might still need documents in the meantime. So this is something that we can simply build in. When you release a new process or a new work instruction, the workflow in ARIS can automatically generate a document that will store as well, specifically for example, for auditory reasons. So in the ideal world, in the end state, you would not need any documents anymore. But we know for sure that it takes time for the regulatory requirements to be adapted. So we generate those documents on the fly. And this is a big advantage because you don't have to work on those documents yourself. They can just be generated.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much for your presentation today. Thank you to everybody who has joined us today, as well as your patience for the momentary audio outings we had. Please stay tuned to our future webcasts, which are available at softwareag.com/webinars. This program today will be available on YouTube. If you'd like to receive a copy of that link, just send the email to the host. As well, if you would like a copy of this presentation, that can also be made available in PDF. Again, just send us an email. Thank you to everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're calling in from, and thank you. Goodbye.